Hi, welcome to my channel where we provide an alternative view to the common narrative. Well, you probably heard about the report of Seymour Herch regarding the Nord Stream pipeline sabotage effort. And, well, it sounds like a very nice spy story. And there are some other sources available, which I will going to discuss. But what this report more gave me, it gave me a glimmer of hope. Well, let's see what this glimmer of hope was. And if you are interested, please continue watching. Hi, welcome back. Today I would like to talk about the recent revelation of Seymour Herch, the article that he wrote about who done it on the sabotage of the Nord Stream pipelines. And as you guessed, the culprit is the USA with their divers that apparently laid the explosives during the NATO exercise, the Baltic 22. And basically that is when explosives were laid by deep sea divers, specialized divers, and then detonated later on by the insertion of a sonic float buoy, you would say. Like, well, if you read the article, it sounds very, very convincing. It is written like it comes from a spy book. But there are some things that bother me a little bit about it. Now, I know Seymour Herch has an excellent reputation. He has exposed a lot of government cover-ups. Well, the famous one was the My Lai Vietnam story, and also Abu Ghraib in Iraq, and the torture that went on there, and some other stories. So his credentials are without a doubt. So technically one has to accept his story. And all the pro-Russian commentators do accept it. And naturally all the pro-Western side deny it as impossible, and no, USA didn't do it. Although the USA has consistently threatened to blow it up, Biden has said so, Blinken has said so as far as I understand, and Newland has said it. So the threat were there, and who, again, the question is who benefits from it? Well, the USA benefits from that by selling its gas to, its expensive gas to Europe, number one. And number two is by getting, which is more important, getting control over the energy sources to America, to the Europe. And that is what the whole aim is about, controlling Europe. If you look at the story per se, like I said, it reads like a novel. There are only a certain amount of groupings that can actually execute this type of operation. So if you knew a little bit about the military history or the military composition of America, then you can easily identify the sources of the so-called divers, the specialized. And if you also listen to further comments, the Senate was never informed, and a lot of senators are now highly upset of this operation, if it's true, and because they were not informed of this. And this type of operation is of such a nature that it could have created or led to a direct war with Russia and a World War III. So it was a declaration of war, and the US Senate, by the law, should have been informed of it and should have been giving the go-ahead or the denial of that, because the risk to this war was enormous. blowing up the infrastructure of an enemy willy-nilly out of the context of war is a big no-no. And even if you consider that it was one of your staunchest supporters or friends and so on, that's even a worse case. Because like the saying goes, who needs enemies when you have friends like that? Okay, so that's about the Seymour side that I can actually say about that. And then unfortunately I read an article, but I can't find the article. So either it's the Moon of Alabama that wrote an article. He has written some articles about this, and it's very interesting and it's credible. So you can look up his articles, so maybe I'll leave a link to it. Or it was the Seika who wrote an article or published a article, or guess one, who then referred to a German source, the way I understand it. But I'm not, because I can't find the article again. I can't, it was in any case a third party. And it is the guy writes the books. And he's a well-known commentator as well. Not that I know him. And he said that he received some information way back last year of a possible whistleblower who was on one of the ships, well, the biggest ship on in this exercise, data exercise, was I don't know, Kearsarge, the USS Kearsarge, which is an amphibious assault ship, and it was escorted by the landing ships, USS Arlington and USS Gunston Hall, and so on. But in any case, so apparently this Kearsarge has some helicopters on well, and as well as an unloading bay, and it is ideal to launch divers and UIVs and landing crafts and etc. into the water. And apparently this whistleblower was part of the diving team, because this exercise was supposed to be part of recovering mines or underwater mines and stuff like that. And therefore divers were required in order to deactivate these mines. So he was part of the team. He didn't present his name nor his position because he didn't want to be identified and victimized or even killed, because this is a sensitive operation. In any case, in this email that he wrote, he told about that an helicopter landed, and in this helicopter was, the first helicopters were a couple of plain suit people. Then another helicopter landed, which were clearly special forces, but they had long hair and beard and so on, typical like specialists. And you could see that they were basically, well, later it turned out these were the divers. And the divers and the plaincloth people, which, again, assumptions, CIA, talked and so on, but nobody could really hear what they were doing. And they were supposed to simulate the recovery of sea mines. But at the end of the day, these guys carried equipment, specialized equipment. It's a MK95, which is a very secret type of diving gear. And it is usually, what is understood, it is made for deep diving. And the recovery of mines is not a deep dive exercise. It's fairly flat to the surface. So the equipment that they used or brought on board was not suitable for mine recovery. And this made the guy suspicious. And at the end of the day, these guys climbed into a boat and drove in a dinghy, or whatever you call it, inflatable, is that the correct word? In any case. And they drove off 2 kilometers in the opposite directions of where the supposed mine clearing was have been done. And then the guys came back about 6 hours later, because this guy was part of the diving team. He knew his equipment, and he told in this email that there was no diving equipment that allowed you to be submerged for more than 6 hours. So these guys used a special type of equipment in this operation. And like I said, it went into the opposite direction. And then this commentator actually didn't react on this whistleblower email because the whistleblower didn't want to make available his name, and basically he didn't trust him, which is like a very stupid thing. It's like Seymour Herch made his story based on a source who also is not identified by anybody. So he could have written a story. So there's a little bit of collaboration of Seymour Herch's story. And then there was basically in crosstalk of this Friday, they talked about the Korean solution. And one of the guest speakers was Gilbert Doctorov. Sorry. It's again pronunciation, sorry. And in any case, he again has a friend who translates all his articles into German. And this German translator is his own journalist, has his own contacts. And he apparently heard from a friend, who again heard from another friend who was involved in this operation, this exercise. And this friend of a friend actually overheard the divers talking about their purpose and what they were trying to do. So again, it's another third source that confirms Seymour Herch's narrative. And then there was an article again by Larry Johnson, who said he referred to a person, I think, Werx or Monkey Werx. And a Monkey Werx is a guy that tracks aircrafts. And he actually had an aircraft roof that in that area that could have possibly, at the time where this explosion happened, and this aircraft could have dropped the buoy that activated the explosion. So you have another source. And then the Moon of Alabama wrote an article that time also about aircrafts, helicopters with certain call names that were flying over the specific areas where the two explosions happened. And I will leave links to these articles so you can read for yourself if you are interested. So basically what we have is we have a highly secretive, specialized operation that is so sensitive that should it be known who has done it, it could lead to a third world war. In fact, in Seymour Herch's article, he specifically said that some people wanted to immediately detonate it after the exercise, and other people said no, that would be too suspicious, and they had to postpone it, and that's when all the elaborate triggering of the explosives basically became part of it. And well, that's where the buoy came into effect. The problem that I have with this story, and it's not that I'm questioning the story per se of Seymour Herch, that's not what I'm trying to do. There are multiple sources, as I've indicated, that supports the story. What bothers me more about this whole story is that you have multiple sources. You have Seymour Herch that has a source. Then you had the one guy, Dr. Ross' friend in Germany, his translator, who had a friend and a friend, who knew about the story and listened to them. So he was on the ship. And then you had this anonymous whistleblower that provided the information and all the details, incredible details of this operation to this guy whose article I can't find. Refind. Do you see the problem? The problem here is that if you have a sensitive operation of this nature, then you have to have absolute secrecy. You have to have as little people as possible knowing about this. And this is not what happened. It all formed part of an exercise where there were a lot of additional military personnel who were specialists in diving, like this one guy. So he would have noticed all this stuff. Now, these guys were from different nationalities. You don't even have control over them. Then you come with these suspicious guys who look suspicious. The typical Rambo type of guys. Then you go and drive in the opposite direction of what you're supposed to be going in broad daylight. And then even, which I actually didn't mention, was that the whole operation was shadowed by two Russian corvettes. So the enemy was right there in front of you while you were supposed to have done this operation. So the security of this operation, which was of utter importance, was actually very poor. And now you have three sources. And there are probably a lot more available if one wants to find about it. And this makes me a little bit worried about the credibility of the story. But I said in my introduction, it gave me hope. So why did it give me hope? Well, apart from America, whose name do you hear the most in the Ukrainian war, the Russian war? Germany. Germany is again being blamed and vilified and is the underdog because he's now supplying German tanks to Ukraine. Just like in the Second World War, he was made a culprit, First World War, although he never started it. Second World War, he was forced, just like Putin was forced, by the constant harassment and cross-border raids of Polish people. And it is true, so don't bullshit me. But Poland at that stage was not only against the Germans, he was also doing the same with Hungary, people from Hungary and other ethnicities. So he wasn't located only against the Germans. But we all know that is the reason why the Second World War started. If you want to be honest. But that's not the point. Germany is again being bashed. And in my previous videos, I said that if you look at the actions of Olaf Scholz, he is very, very hesitant to supply weapons to Ukraine, to get involved. Why? Because Germany has been blamed for the last 70, 80 years for the Second World War, and it was made sure that the Germans never forget it. And that is why Olaf Scholz never forgot it. That's why he's so hesitant. And then I read this nice article that says, oh yeah, Olaf Scholz is actually furious with his foreign minister, Annabel Baerbock, because she actually stabbed him in the back. She's actually a traitor, in my opinion. She motivated other foreign leaders like the Ukraine and Poland in order to prop, is that the right word? Speaking with a stick for Olaf Scholz until he gives in and gives those German tanks to Ukraine. It's like if an employer not motivates but instigates an action by a client in order to get something out of the employee's boss. That's stabbing in the back. That shouldn't be tolerated. And And actually, Annabelle Baerbock should be fired immediately. And also, a lot of other MPs are also against the delivery of tanks. Make no mistake about that. Because Germany has been constantly blamed for anything, and he has been reminded for the last 70, 80 years. And if you look now, Russia is upset because German tanks are rolling over the plains of Ukraine again. Which is a no-no. And you know how the Russians feel about the victory parade and the war, the Second World War. How they have made it a symbol of achievement. So it's important for the Russians, and here comes the Germans again. And I believe Olaf Scholz wanted to prevent that. Now, with the identification of the USA, let's assume this story is correct. Let's assume. And it looks like 95, 98% it is correct. Except for the questions I have. It was very poor security. And the Russians will know about it because the Russians have satellites. The Russians also watch all these aviation flights. They had the corvettes that were shadowing the exercise. They now have this report which now nails them down so they can pinpoint and search for specific locations on the data. And it's a big issue. And in the same sense, the Germans will do it. Whether the Germans will make their stuff public, that's a different story. But they will investigate it and verify each step of the story. And they will ask their soldiers that took part in the exercise, what did they see? And then I was hoping is that they will prove this claim, and the USA is finally identified as a culprit, and then would say, like I said, who needs enemies if you're friends like that? And start to rebel against the whole action in Europe, and that would have caused the breakup of NATO per se, and that would have prevented the current view that the Third World War will start. There will be a conventional war in Europe itself, which might lead to nuclear war. Like I said, I was fairly pessimistic. And the problem is I'm not the only guy that actually is very pessimistic on what we are going forward to and what we're going to achieve. It's not going to happen now. It's going to happen in maybe next year or the end of the year or a little bit longer. Things like this take a long time. This is not the next time we are at war. There's a build-up. There's a time to organize it. So, as you can see, I gained a little bit of excitement, positiveness, and I started to doubt whether we're going to see the final winner. And then, what did Olaf Scholz do? Apparently on Wednesday, he made a speech and he confirmed again his support, Germany's support for Ukraine as long as Ukraine needs it. And the flicker of light was distinguished again. So, I'm still hopeful. I'm a positive person. I hope that the war will not escalate. But I don't see any outcome to any alternative. The only thing that will really help if this story comes to light. It is proven. Organizations that are against the war run with it. The German population revolt to a certain extent and force the current government to call out new elections. And then an anti-war party gets into power, tells the rest of NATO and America, that's it. and call it a day, and that will be breakup of NATO, and that will be the end of this whole conflict. And also then the whole China story will also disappear. USA versus China. It's also going to disappear because there will be no more NATO. Or if Germany stays part of NATO, it will not agree with the way forward and it will rebel. So let's hope, being positive, that this will happen. In any case, that's my story for today. If you like what you heard, please subscribe. If you haven't, tell your friends. Spread the word. And until next time, cheers.